Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. We're going to talk about pattern paper and I have some tips and hacks for you. So get comfy, let's get crafty. I'm working in the Cartabella Botanical Gardens paper pad and I have 5 tips for you. The first tip is to make sure you're using a similar color palette. You wouldn't want to use a muted color palette with a bright color palette, like I would not put those two pads of paper together. So my first hack is to use papers that come in the same pad or the same collection. The designers have done the work for you. For the first card, I'm going to use this card sketch. I'm going to use one piece of paper from this paper pad. I have a standard US A2 size card base already cut and scored, and I'm going to start creating and cutting right away. So this is a 6 by 6 inch paper pad, and I'm going to cut a piece of this bold pattern down to, I think I cut it about 2.5 inches, 3 inches. I eyeballed, I didn't measure, because that's how I roll. It's about 2 inches, I guess. And this is the pattern I want to go across the card. I'm going to flip that paper over, and I'm going to cut a 1 inch rectangle from this side, and then with the flowers are going to go horizontal. The narrow strip is going to go underneath it, and we will cut the fishtail end in it. And from the leftover scrap, I'm going to pull in this old Stampin' Up! Punch and punch off that kind of lattice border on the edge. There is a trick to these kinds of old school stamps. They have the pattern engraved or marked onto the punch bed, whatever you want to call it. You just have to line it up. Super easy. And then I'm going to trim this down so all I have is that little lattice piece. So for the assembly, we're going to put a little bit of double-sided adhesive on the bottom edge of the back side of that floral print. And then I'm just going to use my fingers and my grid mat to line that up. And then we'll move on to creating our fishtail banner. Now this piece of paper is like 6 inches tall, and I only want it to be about 4.5 inches tall. So I trimmed it down. And here's my tip for cutting a banner. Fold in the bottom edge of your banner strip and pinch it, but not all the way up, just a little bit. And then you can cut up the middle and cut in from the sides, and then you have a perfectly centered, nicely angled fishtail banner. You could also use a die. But I think for me, it's just way easier to just use the scissors. So now it's assembly. I'm going to use double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to put this banner centered but to the left side. So center top to bottom. And then I'm going to pop the top up with some 3-dimensional foam tape. I'm going to put a whole bunch of foam tape on the back of this, and I made a boo-boo. I did not trim it down before I put foam tape all over the back of it, so I'm going to end up cutting off a lot of that foam tape. Don't worry, I saved it. I didn't make you watch me save it, but I saved it. So once we get that down, we can go ahead and trim that off with scissors. The cutter would not have worked because of the foam tape, but that's card number 1. We'll talk about the centerpiece later. For card number 2, I'm going to use this, My Favorite Things card sketch. And we're going to talk about using multiple patterns from the same collection or pad of paper. If you've been in paper crafting very long, you've probably heard the gallon, quart, pint theory. And that's basically the same thing with pattern papers, except instead of using quantity, we're going to talk about size. So my second hack is to use a large print, a medium print, and a small or neutral or solid appearing print. So my bold print I'm going to trim down to fit on the front of my card. It's just a tiny border all the way around it. And then I'm going to grab that green, which reads like a solid. It does have a little bit of that printed texture in it, but you can't really see it. I'm going to trim down a smaller panel, and it's going to be in the middle of my floral piece. And then the striped pattern paper, I'm going to trim down a 1 inch column or strip of paper, and then I'm going to cut 1 inch squares out of that. Didn't make you watch that because, well, it was out of focus. But I also pulled out my We Are Memory Keepers corner rounder, and I'm chopping off 2 opposing corners on each of those triangles. Oh my goodness, squares, y'all. They're squares. I do know my geometric shapes. They're squares. And by turning or chopping off 2 of the corners, it turns them into that kind of leaf, or I don't know what you want to call it, a leaf pattern. So I am going to align these on my card front the same way that the card sketch shows. And I'm putting the floral pattern paper down with double-sided adhesive. Same with the green paper. And then I'm going to salvage the foam tape to put my striped squares down. Now, I did edit that off because most of it was done off camera, but I just peeled the foam tape off of that paper I cut off on the last card and put it on the backs of these squares with some glue. So that's card number 2. Card number 3 is to use 1 bold pattern paper for your card panel, your card layer. So I picked the darkest, boldest pattern in this paper pad. I'm trimming it down so there's a small border on the front of my card. And my hack is to color match your inks to stamp or color an image to put on the front of your card with your pattern paper. So I reached into my drawer and pulled out my new Concord and 9th inks, and I picked the purples that will coordinate with the purple background of that page. And I'm going to use My Favorite Things. It's called the Modern or Tropical Flowers. And it has a layering floral stamp set. I'm going to use 1 flower and 1 foliage. And I'm going to layer stamp the image onto this little white piece of paper that is smaller than the card front. So the first thing I'm going to do is stamp the first layer in the lightest ink. This is really light, so I stamped it twice actually. And once I get the first layer stamped, I can pull in the second layer with the second lightest ink, then the third layer with the third lightest ink, and the fourth layer with the fourth darkest, or the darkest of the 4 inks. And once I have that all stamped, I'm going to figure out the foliage. So I've picked a green that will match the pattern paper, and I'm grabbing a Post-it note to act as a mask. Now, you're going to see me make a boo-boo here, and it threw me for a loop, but then I decided I didn't hate it. So I pulled the Post-it off, and I had accidentally, I had put it too far off the petal of the flower, and then I forgot to put the mask back on the bottom petal, but I don't hate it. It looks like the leaves are kind of sticking out between the petals, so I left it. I was not going to start over. So I'm going to tear up my little Post-it note a little bit more, cover up those petals, and this time I threw the magnet down on them because the sticky was torn into 100 pieces, and I'm going to put that foliage up in that kind of top right corner again, masking it off, and then I'm going to put my card together. The pattern paper has already been adhered with double-sided adhesive. That was kind of off camera. So now I'm going to put some foam tape on the back of the stamp panel, and I contemplated dropping that down to the bottom right-hand corner, but I decided to go ahead and loop it in the middle, and that is card number 3. So tip number 4, card number 4 is to use pattern papers with die cuts to make a die cut shape on the front of your card. So I'm going to use this Simon Says Stamp hexagon die, and I'm going to cut a bunch of hexagons. And my hack is to use double-sided paper because you get a wider variety that will still coordinate as you cut out your hexagons. And I am cutting out 8 hexagons to use on the front of my card. So the next thing I just need to do is just put these hexagons down on the front of my card. I'm kind of not being particular about what goes where, but I am trying to make it look pretty to my eye. And that's really all. I'm just making it look pretty to my eye. Now, I end up only using 6 of the 8 hexagons. So no biggie. I'll put those away and save them for later. And now we pull in our press and seal. And we're going to put a little press and seal down. We're going to pick up our hexagons. And we can, I'm smoothing that on like nobody's business. Then we can take the card off and add adhesive to the backs of our hexagons and put them all down in one at one time without undoing the plan we had for our die cuts. That's the word. Sorry, y'all. My brain is like not functioning on all cylinders today. But once I take that press and seal off, everything looks perfect. And then I just need to trim off the parts that hang over. So I'm going to pull in my guillotine machine, line the card edge up with the edge of the trimmer. And that is 4 cards. Now, my 5th tip is that you can add any neutrals like black or white, foil paper, glitter paper, or sequins. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all 4 of these cards, and I have pulled a bunch of word die cuts out of my stash. I'm going to die cut them in black paper. So this first card, I'm using the Congratulations die cut from Paper Smooches. Now, I don't think you can buy their stuff anymore. I think the company went under, or sorry, I shouldn't say it went under, went out of business. They moved on to other things. But this Congratulations die is a multiple piece die. So I grabbed my little bowl and put all the pieces I needed to keep in that bowl. I pulled in the negative and put it all back together inside the cutouts with the middle pieces missing. And then I'm going to take a piece of Post-it tape and pick that all up at one time so that I can peel it out of that piece of black cardstock. And this is a thicker black cardstock. It's a 110-pound cardstock. I'm going to add glue to the back of the sentiment, and then I'm going to line it up on the front of my card, just right there in the middle, because this beautiful pattern paper doesn't need a lot of extras on it, right? And then I could remove my Post-it tape, and voila, card number 1 has its sentiment. I do need to put the tittle on. That's the dot that goes on the eye, which is why I pulled my little bowl out so I wouldn't lose the tittle. Now I had to pull in my little pokey tool to get the tittle to come off my pickup stick, but you know, it's all kinds of things. For the second card, I'm going to use this little yellow bicycle die set. I don't even know how long I've had this. I want to use the Love You dies. I'm going to cut them out of that same black paper and just adhere them right here to the side of my little leaf squares with some double-sided adhesive. I am not even attempting to make these look straight. I'm just putting them on. They're skiwampus. They're not straight, but they're not straight on purpose, as opposed to I tried and failed. All right, sentiment for card number 2. Card number 3, I'm going to use this CZ Designs and Simon Says Stamp Thanks die, and I'm going to use that same black cardstock. I'm going to cut it out and add some double-sided adhesive, and I can put this word die down in that upper left-hand side, kind of where there's more empty space. And then card number 4. This is my favorite things. It says beautiful. It does have a shadow cut out as well. I did not use that. I did use the same Post-it note trick so that I could get it laid down. It is one word. It's not different pieces. It's one piece. But it was just easier to get it down straight that way. And then I put the tittle on my eye. And now the other part of my hack is to add some bling. I am not a bling kind of girl. Now, I say that, but I've got 2 trays of embellishments plus drawers full of stuff. So I decided this would be an excellent time to start using them. I thought I'd put them on the pattern paper, then I liked them better off the pattern paper. I am picking, just kind of putting them down. I want an odd number of total embellishments on my card because I think that's how it looks best. You do you. If you like them even, you do them even. For the second card, I contemplated putting them just down that right-hand side, and then I decided to do, then I went crazy and added 3 groups of 3 and said, yeah, no. And I put 2 in the top and 3 in the bottom because, again, I like the odd number. I know. And there's a lot of things you could do with your embellishments. You could use the visual triangle rule in order to pull the eye into the sentiment or another element on the card. There's lots of tricks you can use. So my initial thought with card number 3 was to add the sequin to the middle of the flower. It would not come off. Stick into my finger, stick into my pickup stick, stick into my pokey tool. I did not like the sequin inside the flower. I didn't. So I just went with 2 small groupings again. Some on top of the sentiment, some on bottom of the sentiment. And my pickup stick and my pokey tool and my fingers are covered in glue, and the sequins are winning the war, or their battle. I'll win the war, but they're winning the battle. So for the beautiful and the hexagon card number 4, I just did the same thing. I kind of played with where I wanted them, surrounded the sentiment, and that's how you add bling to your pattern paper cards, or that's how I added bling to this set of pattern paper cards. Now I have a bonus tip for you. How to store the pieces of cut up pattern paper. So I have a 6x9 inch envelope that I've cut in half and sealed shut, and then I've glued it or taped it to the back of my pattern paper pad. And then I go through all of the pieces that I cut up today, and the ones that I cut the hexagons out of, I just trim the cut up part out of it. And that's the only thing that's the only waste I'll have, are those pieces on the right side there that have the hexagon, oh my goodness, dies cut out of them. And I can throw a little bit away. This is how come I have so much pattern paper, y'all, because I hoard it to the end of time. Couple of close-ups of the cards here. I hope you can see those beautiful colors in the pattern paper. And I hope this gave you an idea of what to do with that pattern paper pad that you knew you didn't really need, but you bought it anyway because it was gorgeous, because that's how I got this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed the video. I have a couple other videos here I think you will like as well. I've also added a subscribe button. If you have not yet subscribed, I would love it if you did. Leave me a comment down below. Give me your tip for pattern paper. Give me a thumbs up, let YouTube know you liked the video, and have a really fabulous day.